Okay.
Chad, did you set that live stream up, or did somebody in your office do it?
I do it.
I need to get with you on how you did that. I've been trying to get the administrative office of the courts to teach me how to do it or get me an account. And I mean, it's been months and they've not responded. So I think I'm just going to do my own.
Do you use Zoom?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. So there's an option at the bottom where it says more, and it will say live on YouTube. And as long as you have an account, I use our department's account. And
you have to have a YouTube account.
Well, just a Gmail.
Oh, okay. Well, I went through all that process, but it kept asking about, there was some option on there you could check. I forgot what it was, but I think it was maybe more secure.
Yeah, see him.
But
Yeah.
I never went past it. I was afraid to go past it.
You can stream live to Facebook too. There's one of the two that there's an option you have to either turn on or off about a security thing for it to work on the Zoom app.
Yeah, I think there's a built-in link with YouTube and Zoom. And there may be with Facebook, but I don't have Facebook, so I don't.
But we've been using YouTube even for all the board meetings, just because, you know, a lot of people, not everybody has a Facebook account, so YouTube's more widely available.
Right.
Wayne, come on.
I'm gonna start the recording. It's like Wayne is here.
Hey, Wayne.
You got one?
Got my mask, but it's all right. That's all right. As far as I know, I'm all right.
Yeah, me too.
Me too. Wayne's here. I've been telling
Look it up.
what a line they had up here today.
I had that.
All right, Jason, I guess we're ready. Jason, Chad.
Yes, sir. We're ready.
We're ready. You too, Jason. You want me to kick it off? All right. There's a nod. All right.
Yes, sir.
Regular scheduled meeting of the Jasper Municipal Regional Planning Commission now come to order. I need we got a quorum. I need a motion for the approval of the previous minutes. I don't see them though.
No.
We don't have them, right?
Linda hadn't got them done.
All right, so we'll just dispense with that. New business. Chad, you're on.
Yes, sir. Well, I think I'll let Mr. West take the floor here. He's representing Valmont Industries from AD Engineering. They have submitted a site plan for their proposed expansion. So if you want to talk to you a little bit about that, then I'll go over anything else that needs to be talked about.
All right, welcome, Mr. West. Glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. So like Chad said, we submitted a site plan for the new project. Valmont hopes to build an expansion over on the, I'm sorry, I was muting. Valmont plans to build an expansion, a new building over on the east side of their current facility. It's currently a gravel storage yard. And they'll build, it's about a 31,000 square foot building. And they will also, they have an existing crane order system over on that side of the facility, and they're going to add an extra couple of bays to that crane. And so that's pretty much the gist of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
And Chad, you've reviewed it.
Yes, sir. I've looked it over, and from everything I can tell, it complies with the requirements of your zoning ordinance. It did meet all the minimum requirements of a site plan, and I didn't note any issues with it, so I would be recommending approval to the board.
Okay. Anyone have questions or discussion? It's very not glad they're expanding, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, that was fast, John. I'll say that much for you. All right, without any further ado, do we have a motion to approve the request as submitted? And as Chad,
I'll make a motion to approve the site plan.
all right, have a second.
I'll second it.
All right, now we'll have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. West.
Thank you.
All right, Chad, moving right along with the Heritage Estate subdivision is Mr. Gravitt. We all know Mr. Gravitt.
Mr. Chairman, this is Stan. Are you happy on live there?
Stan, I hear you, but I don't see you.
Okay, well, you don't have to see me. You know
I
what
see
I'm
you.
like.
I see.
I don't have my makeup on today, so.
Well, I've been working all afternoon on mine, Stan. We're glad you're here, Stan. Did you hear the discussion about Valmont?
No, I did not, but
It was, we discussed it just very briefly. It didn't take long. Chad approved, had gone through the site, looked at it and submitted an approval, and we voted to go ahead and approve Valmont's request.
that's fine. We did have a forum, so that'd be fine.
Okay, good deal. Well, now you're caught up now, so we're now on Heritage Estate subdivision, phase 3, and Mr. Gravitt's here somewhere. I don't see him, but I know he's here. Mr.
Yeah,
Gravitt?
I'm here.
Okay, yeah.
We're just proposing this last phase of the subdivision of Heritage Estates. We started this about 12 years ago, and this was the last phase. We're waiting for the road to come through and see what they were going to take, the new extension there in Jasper right above it. And they took part of our property. So once the state finished the road, I've had the survey and elevation shot, and then started to do the lot division. We already roughed the road in. We took the topsoil out, put the chert in 12 years ago. So the base has been there that long. We've just been waiting for the state to do their thing. So now we're ready to go to this last phase and put water and sewer in and do the, pave the roads and get it some residential lots ready for Jasper. But I think Chad has some issues that he wants to bring up. So I'll let him say what he needs to say, then I'll take over back from there.
Okay, and also on the call, we have Mike Hodges from AD Engineering that did all the engineering plans. We also have Danny Dancy on too for the survey. So as far as the layout of the 15 lots, I've looked that over, and there was only one minor variance that was needed. That's for this small lot that's right here at the end of the cul-de-sac, what's shown to be lot 16. It's just very, very slightly under the required 25 feet wide, so I would recommend approval of that variance. That's not going to be an issue. This is considered, sir?
Excuse me, that lot's done been approved on previous easements. I mean, previous, that's already a lot that's been already
We've done that.
on that one phase. That phase has done been passed.
Okay, well, he had it drawn in here with the color of the new phase,
Oh.
so I thought that was part of this new phase.
No, I made a mistake on that, I'd say.
Okay, well, then we don't have to worry about that one, then we'll just talk about the other 15. So Mr. Dancy has made the changes that you see requested on this plat here. He has removed this signature block over here. This was originally created as a final plat. He has put the appropriate signature block on there for a preliminary giving approval for this. I did look at the water and sewer line design. So we'll go on to the next few pages here. So this is the proposed road design. It does meet the minimum requirements of your subdivision regulations for the width, the proper drainage on the side, the design of the cul-de-sac. So I did not see any issues with the proposed road design for this development. There were a few minor things on engineering plans that mentioned the city of Chattanooga and just some little corrections that needed to be made on those plans. Let's get over here to the water and sewer. So on the water line, it is proposed to be a 6-inch water line. I did note on this, it shows an existing fire hydrant, which is right here along Rebecca Lane. This is the existing one. To maintain your ISO rating, we always recommend that every lot be within 500 feet of a fire hydrant. Looking at the size of this subdivision, one extra one may do that to accomplish that goal. So I was recommending one somewhere in this general area, but kind of depends on what serves the best area for all of these lots here. As far as the sewer, I did not get into great detail on looking at the sewer plans, but I did give those to Mayor Evans to pass on to Ed so that those could be reviewed for any issues they may have there. They were proposing an 8-inch PVC line to serve this subdivision. So I don't see any issues there, Mayor, unless there are any comments from Ed that you'd like to tell us about that we're not aware of. Now, the one
I don't know
big
if any,
issue,
Ed hasn't brought up any issues,
okay.
Chad.
So the one issue I did want to bring it to everybody's attention, as you all recall, back on Easter night of this year, we did have a lot of flooding throughout the valley. It was a really heavy rainfall event, but we did end up with a lot of flooding in the Heritage Estate subdivision. Our agency did a lot of door-to-door surveys, so we know what extent of the damage that it has there. Most people had it either in their garage or their front yard. There was one vehicle that was sitting outside that was inundated with water, and several homes did have HVAC units that were affected. So with this area right here, it is outside of a flood zone, but I want to go back to this map right here. This is the area you see in blue. That is the official flood zone. This was done prior to State Route 150 coming through. This is a 2012 map. What you see in this crosshatched area following Prior Cove Branch, that is considered to be the floodway. From our surveying that we did door to door, you can see all the red dots that are here. These are the ones that we actually have the data on how each home was affected. And so we mapped out the approximate area that the flood happened throughout Heritage Estates. So you can see where that line comes. So we're talking about the new phase of this area right in here. So I've talked to their building inspector, Earl Geary, some about this as to what can be done, because in the future, we just want to make sure that all the homes are protected and won't be likely inundated by water. You know, you never know with flooding events. Flash flooding can occur in a lot of areas that you don't have flood zones. And we're just trying to get to the bottom of how and why this area was affected and if it can be prevented in the future. We are working with the county and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and many other federal and state agencies to do a flood mitigation plan for Marion County. We're concentrating our efforts in Jasper and South Pittsburgh, as well as some of the coves throughout the county. But as far as any information that we'll have, that's actually going to be several years down the road before we have any of that survey data done for these communities. So this is the one area I wanted to discuss tonight. As far as the layout of the subdivision goes, proposed utilities, I see no major issues with those, but I think this is something that we do need to start a discussion on. So Mr. Gravitt?
Yes, what was that question again?
Well, I just said we were just wanting to start a discussion. You said that you wanted to add something after we got done.
Yeah, so any other recommendations from you on this?
So as far as the area right here, like I said, we don't have any evidence yet as to what caused the flooding in the area. We have been working with some state agencies who are looking at it. TDOT, for one, is taking a look at this as well, but they don't have any of their work done yet. They anticipate that being the end of January before they can have anything back to us. I've been talking to the regional director here in Region 2 about this because we started this several months ago, actually looking at this area right there. So we don't have any of their results yet. And then in talking with Earl Geary, you know, we've batted around some ideas about should we require a flood study to be done on this area in accordance with Jasper's flood ordinance, which does say if you're developing more than 5 acres, we could require a flood study. The other thing was just for the protection of the homes, maybe considering having them elevated by the 1 foot, which would be required in an AE zone, which is what surrounds the periphery of this property.
Yes, what I was proposing is that, of course, I know the flood came down when the bridge clogged up there on Bexley Pack Drive, and it threw the water out of the creek. It came down 150, then it came down Bexley Pack Drive about 3 foot high. Of course, it came through my subdivision going as it drained through, and it threw a lot of water down there, which is a very unusual circumstance. We've been there 12 years and everything's been fine so far. Of course, this was a very unusual flood. And then on top of that, with the bridge clogging up, throwing it out of the creek and coming through my subdivision. But the last house I just sold in there about a month ago, I built it higher with block. I put the heat and air unit upstairs with no ductwork underneath the floor. And we got 15 lots. Chad, my son, and I own this subdivision, and we were going to before I even talk to you, we're going to raise another block higher just to be cautious of anything that might happen in the future. And also, we're going to put the heat and air units in the attic with the ductwork in the attic, just like I did there on Judelin Lane. I sold that house a month ago on Judelin Lane, and I put the heat and air unit and I raised it up. And I also raised, I know they got some in the garages down there, but that I didn't build those houses. And I always raise my garages up another foot or higher with gravel. I'm going to raise my garages up also in this phase. So we should be prepared for anything that might happen in the future like this again. Of course, hopefully we won't never have that, but you never know. But with the bridge, I know when I was in college, the flood came through and it wiped the bridge, Betsy Pack Bridge out completely. And of course, now this time it clogged it up and came out. And I know that's probably debris there in the creek coming down real fast during extreme rain like we had, clogging the bridge up, and the water came out. Of course, it had to come through the subdivision. It came through fast and it got out of the way. We don't have any flood as far as backing up. And so that was my thing I want to tell the committee as we propose to go in this development, that we'll be a block higher, that the garage would be filled in, heat and air units would be in the attic. So it shouldn't have no problem in the future, hopefully.
And Bobby, the problem with that flooding was not Betsy Pack, it was the Highway 150 bridge they put in. 2 of the 3 culverts that they put in there stopped up.
Oh, okay.
And it came out right there behind the church and flooded your subdivision. The Betsy Pack Drive was good. It just had some rocks in there. They brought in about 2 feet of rock, but that Highway 150 bridge was the problem.
I'm sorry. I thought it was the prior Betsy Pack Bridge. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah. I didn't know.
And TDOT, I met with the TDOT out there here 2 or 3 months ago, and they were actually looking and to consider putting in riprap wall right there in that area where it came across. So that's one of the things that they're studying right now.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Stan Wilson here. I know you can't see me, but can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine, Stan.
Okay, I've got just a couple of questions for you, Bobby. The one that I have is I'm not necessarily concerned about the flooding, because I agree that you can build it up higher, or you can even build it up and pour a slab, which will mediate some of that problems about flooding. But the question I had was, what about the actual, and I know we don't have any policy for stormwater runoff, but as far as ditches and curbs, I've just printed off a copy of this, and it's kind of small with my annotated computer here, but is there going to be any curbs or ditches or drainage for these lots, and where does that water go once it comes off of that street or off the property?
It flows through the subdivision, but AD engineering, is going to do lot lines, drainage, and prepare, I don't know, it'd be based on the requirements. I guess Mike Hodges can answer that more than I could.
Sure, I can answer that. Chad, if you could scroll to sheet C 3.0, we've prepared a grading plan, and we have provided ditches on both sides of the road, and they drain to a stormwater detention basin that's been sized to reduce the post-development flow back to the pre-development flow. So there's a stormwater detention basin at the end of that cul-de-sac right there, and the ditches are designed to drain all the water through that pipe at structure 2 and out to structure 1. So it goes to the same spot that it went to pre-development, and it's just detained to slow down the runoff.
I just know a lot of times what is I've noticed that if you've got some kind of curb or curb and gutter, and the water comes from the lots onto the street and runs down the gutters, the curb, it can go to the retention, but you're planning on putting ditches along each property line. Is that what it is?
Yes, ditches along the roadway, directing the stormwater to the basins.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all the question I had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir. Any other questions? Okay, Chad, where do we go from here?
Mr. Gravett, I'm glad to hear that you're looking at elevating the houses. That's something Earl Geary and I had discussed that he was probably going to require of that. So I think that will help mitigate the problem because it was just shallow flooding that occurred there. But, for us to expand in this area, we'd like to make sure that all future homes are going to be protected as much as possible for that area. Like I said, as far as your preliminary layout goes, I didn't note any issues with it. And I think, like Mayor Evans said, that the utility department has looked at it and has not noted any issues either. So, provided those homes are going to be elevated, and you can work with Earl Geary when you get into the point of making construction as to what needs to be done for those and how they need to be elevated, what he's agreeable with. As far as the layout goes, I support and recommend approval of the design of the subdivision.
You all heard that. We have a recommendation from Chad to approve the subdivision as it's presented to us, and Mr. Gravett described it. Do I have a motion to approve the subdivision?
I make a motion.
All right, we have a motion from Wayne. Have a second?
I'll make a second.
Second, I'm not sure.
That was me. That was me.
All right. All right, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Okay, Chad. Thank you, Mr. Gravett.
Hey, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, or do we need to have a roll call on that vote, or is it all right just have it voiced like that?
We should do a roll call, Stan.
Yeah, we're supposed to do a roll call since we're doing this virtually. That's,
Let's go back and do both of them then.
Yeah.
Go back and do Valmont. All right, so who's the secretary?
So
I am.
Kevin made the motion on the Valmont plat that was seconded by Yvonne Wilson.
All right. Okay, so who's got the roll call? Just call a roll.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I can do it.
Yeah, go for it. Yes, please.
Chairman Matt Bumpus,
Yes.
Stan Wilson,
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't through the whole meeting. I mean, I'm all for it, but I'm just going to abstain because I wasn't listening to all the information.
okay, Debbie Coker,
Yes.
Kevin Merrill,
Yes.
Paul Wayne Evans,
Yes.
Wayne Westmoreland,
Yes.
and Yvonne Wilson.
Yes.
All right. There's the Valmont. Now we move to Heritage Estates.
So on that one, Wayne Westmoreland made the motion, which was seconded by Yvonne Wilson. So
Correct.
we'll do the roll call. Chairman Matt Bumpus,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Stan Wilson,
Yes.
Debbie Coger,
Yes.
Kevin Merrill,
Yes.
Paul Wayne Evans,
Yes.
Wayne Westmoreland,
Yes.
and Yvonne Wilson.
Yes.
All right. All right, good deal. Took care of that. Chad, any other properly presented new business?
Yes, I do have one other thing to share with you. At the previous planning commission, I mentioned, due to COVID, we decided to postpone doing our in-person planning commissioner training this year. So what we have decided to do is we were going to post it online for you. So I'm going to put it up here on the screen. Show you where to go. So if you go to our website, sedev.org/planning, there will be a section down here for planning commissioner and BZA training. And so what we've done this year is the Tennessee American Planning Association. We weren't able to hold our in-person conference this year. In fact, it was supposed to be in Chattanooga and we were planning it, but because of COVID, we decided to postpone that. So we'll be doing that in Chattanooga next year. But what they've been doing is they've been putting together, every few weeks, we've been doing online sessions. So there's been one on ethics. There's been one on planning commissioner and BZA training. Just this past week, there was an update to state law. That's all the legislation that's going through the state legislature now that in some way involves planning. So we posted all these videos out here on YouTube. And what you'll do is you'll just sometime between now and the end of the year, if you just want to spend some time watching some of these videos. And then we've added a survey here, which is certifying. It's a self-certification that you've received your 4 hours of training this year. So if you just go through the training material and fill out the survey, it asks for your name, for you to check that you're certifying that you've done it, and then we can issue your training certificates that way. So that's what we're trying to do this year since we can't hold our in-person training.
Dad, do you care to email us the link to that?
There you
Sure.
are.
I'll email it to you as soon as we get off.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Should let us go out and get it.
Yeah. Are you gonna pay for a meal or something too, Chad?
Next year.
Just one meal, Chad, that's all we ask. No, okay, all right. Any old business?
Mr. Chairman, I have some, a couple questions and some kind of a newest kind of business that I'd like to bring up, if I might.
Certainly, yes, go ahead, Sam.
And Chad may can speak a little bit about this also. We, here at the property that I own here at the cabinet shop, years ago, I had bought a piece of property at the end of Pottery Street on Colville Road, they call it now. And Zella Caulfield had an old house there. And I tore that house down and I built 2 houses on there. And apparently unbeknownst to me and maybe even the building inspector at that time, somewhere down the line, I believe that all of that property was transferred into an industrial zone at one time. So now I have got 2 houses built back there that is built in an industrial zone. And one of the persons that lives there was going to put up a garage to put his boat in. Tried to get a building permit, and the building inspector said he could not issue a building permit because it's listed in a industrial zone. I have got Sam Clemens working on possibly taking those 2 lots and rezoning it into an R2 area, which was what is joining it off right across from Colville Road. But I just wondered if there's anything we can do before that gets done about expediting this property owner getting a building permit about putting a garage up. I mentioned that he could probably put it up saying it was in an industrial, so put up an industrial building, but we really don't want to do that. We're going to try to clean it up, but it's not something that I can clean up, just in a week or 2. We're going to have to get a survey brought into the planning commission. It's going to have to be reviewed and then brought up to the planning commission. Chad, are you familiar with this information?
Yes, I talked to Earl about it on the phone a few days ago. And I think this is the lot I've got up on the screen here that he was talking to me about. Because what I first told him is since it's in industrial and it's already an existing residential use, I didn't see much of an issue with it being added. I first thought it was going to be more of a smaller removable building, but I think you said it was going to be a 30 by 30, if I remember correctly.
I believe it is, yes.
On this lot. And so what I told him is, when you read the non-conforming use section of the zoning ordinance, it says you can't expand the use on the property. But being that it's as large lot as it is in industrial, I mean, we're not going backwards. It's not like we're taking a commercial business and expanding it in a residential area. You're expanding residential in an industrial area. So I didn't see a big problem with adding that building, but I did tell him that if he feels that he can't make that determination, then that would be up to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Now, I did pull the zoning ordinance. We looked at rezoning a lot of these properties several years ago, and it never did move forward. So if that's something you want to pursue again, for some of these homes and this property in this area, we can certainly look at that. I think you were looking at doing something at the cabinet shop, and we looked at kind of everything in that general area, but we could certainly look at these few properties.
Yeah, and the reason that I backed off of that is because the way we had it set up, I was going to build my personal house on the back side of that lot. And what we'd had to do is we'd had to separate even where my lumber storage shed, part of the cabinet shop, into that zone 2, R2. And I really didn't want to start chopping up that, my cabinet shop area there, because in case something ever happened, it could never go back to industrial. So, I mean, the building is good for a cabinet shop or for the uses that I'm using it for. So that's why I backed off of that at that time. So with that being said, these two lots back there is no longer owned by me, but they were, actually there was a house on it. So that's why I would like to go ahead and expedite that as soon as I can. I've told Sam to go ahead and get those drawings over to you, Chad, so we can work on that. And then later on, I made to clean up the front part where I've got two duplexes. I may section that section off there and do a subdivision plat on it, but I don't want to do that right now because that's going to take a little bit more extensive work to do that rather than just do those two existing homes.
Now, Stan, this is the proposal we had looked at before. Which of these parcels would you be talking about?
Well, I don't have for some reason, my camera's not working on my phone. I don't have my computer here working. So it's the two, if you look back at on Colville Road.
Okay.
There should be two lots on Colville Road. There's
Okay,
two houses there.
Okay, that would be this one and this one, I believe. Like the zoning map.
Oh, that's one. So if you go down to the end of Pottery, just for a reference, for everyone, if you go down to the end of Pottery Street, turn left on Colville Road. There used to be an old Tater house there, an old building. Then there's two houses right there. And I believe if you, that would be on the right side of Colville Road, and on the left side, I believe that's zone R2. So it's not like we would be spot zoning or anything. So I believe that shouldn't be a problem there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I see which one you're talking about. What's in that commercial building right there at the corner of Pottery and Colville?
I think a guy is working on old cars in there. I think he's just like he's and the mayor may can expound on that a little bit more, but I believe he just got some old cars in there that he fixes up old restoration of old cars is what I believe.
Yeah, and he was the reason he didn't want it rezoned from industrial to residential. Best I can remember too, Stan.
It could be true.
I went to talk to him, and he said it, about it, and he said he was at the time he just rather it stay industrial because my brother owns property there now, and so he was all in favor of rezoning it because it's residential for him anyway, and I don't see any industry moving in there myself, but
I think the easiest way to do that is just to clean up for those two homeowners that's there now, to clean up the error or the mistake that was made back years ago, is to go ahead and rezone those two into R2, and that will clean that up. And I think that should be an easy thing to do. Do you agree, Chad?
I think it would be.
So that's something that Sam is working on now, and he'll get something to you and hopefully get it to you in time so we can do that on next planning commission meeting. And but if we could, I think he wanted to get started on a garage over there. But if you think we could talk to Earl and see if it's possible, we could go ahead and let him do that. Or if you'd rather wait, I mean, I'm just at your mercy, whatever.
Well, like I said, that's really something you'd have to work out with Earl, because I gave him the options of, if he couldn't grant it, what you all could do in order to get it. So just need to talk with him and find out for sure.
Okay, and I think that's all I had to say on that. One other thing that I had is over at the subdivision I've got over there at Town Creek subdivision, I had sold a lot to a person, and they were in the process of putting a dog lot or a fence, a 4-foot high chain link fence around their property. And they called Earl for a building permit. And he said, because it's a 4-foot cyclone or chain link fence, there's no permit needed. So they started putting the fence up, and they put the fence right out to the curb. And if there hadn't been a sidewalk, he didn't want to block the sidewalk off, so he was going to back off the sidewalk. And I mentioned to the mayor, I mean, is that something that we want to allow people to do to start fencing in city property? I mean, when we do a subdivision, we have to put a 50-foot right of way through there. And I don't think we need to start letting people fence all the way out to the roadway and encompassing some of the city's property. I think I've got that taken care of. I had a surveyor go out and it cost me $350 to put his markers up there. And the gentleman, the couple that lives in the house, they're willing to do whatever, you know. So I think we've got this one worked out. But I just, in the future, I just want to get the opinion of the planning commission. Is that something that we do allow people to put fences and encompass city property?
No, Stan, what that is, they can put it on the property line if both property owners agree. And Mark, you correct me, but if not, they cannot put it on city property, and it's got it has to be on their own property.
Well, what I would recommend is someone telling Earl that, because
He told me that. We talked about that today.
okay, good.
Yeah, he told them to stop work till it got worked out, and they got their pins because it could not go on town property.
You know, I know there's a lot of places inside the city limits that's got fences all the way to the road, but I believe the reason behind that is I believe that those properties actually go right to the road. But
They do.
So when you've got a subdivision, those property lines don't actually go all the way to the road. So,
And if my memory's right, it seems like that happened. That issue came up years ago when Zach was still city attorney, and I think Roy was the building inspector. And it turned on the definition of what is a structure. And a structure is anything that takes parts to assemble. So a fence fell under that. I think that's, you know, why they have to come and get the building permit. But the way that got resolved, I mean, it was a hazard if it came all the way out to the road, you know, it obstructed view and was a dangerous condition. And I can't remember exactly what Zach did, but I don't know if we changed the ordinance or if it just fell back into the building code for the building inspector to make that determination whether or not it was a hazard and where it had to be placed. But that's probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe.
There's something in your zoning code. It referred to, when you look at the definition of a structure, it does mention fences, but it referred to another section of the municipal code. And I looked it up, and it's actually a part of the zoning code that's in your municipal code. And it did talk about not having obstruction of a fence, that it can only be a certain height near intersections or roadways, but it didn't get any more specific as to how far it could come out or if it could be located on the property line. It's sort of generic what that it had in there.
But I want to say maybe was there, I think it had to be the same, it seems like it had to be along the setback lines. There had to be, you know, put on the setback line, or there was some question about. I
didn't find anything that mentioned that, but I know some other cities have actually adopted some guidelines as to what you can do with a fence.
Well, I mean, you know, our setback lines are for safety anyway. That's the primary reason for them. So I'm not sure if the issue that you're talking about, Stan, is that coming out onto the road, on the sidewalk?
Well, no, it's not. But I mean, if we allow someone to put, like, for example, if you're going down Elm Street and then you pass Wilson Court and then go to Tobias Court, it's right on the corner of Elm and Tobias Court. So there's no sidewalk on the Elm side, but there is a sidewalk on the Tobias Court. But if we allow someone to bring that fence all the way to the curb, encompassing city property, then what's stopping Stan Wilson at the cabinet shop out here taking it? If my property only goes 20 feet from the edge of that pavement, what's stopping Stan Wilson from taking my fence and going all the way out to that pavement out there and encompassing part of city property? I want to
say that the answer was that since the fence is deemed to be a structure under the building code, it falls under the same rules as other structures, that we don't let them build other structures in the setback, you know, limits unless they have some sort of variance. So I think the fence needs to be, you know, considered a structure just like it would be if it were, you know, a stick frame building of some type. And I'm pretty sure that's the way that it got resolved all those years ago when it came up the last time. It was a structure and it was not permitted to be, you know, installed past the setback lines.
What
Did the
about
same-
the vision at the corner? if you've got a chain link fence that goes all the way to the corner, what's to stop somebody, and you can see through that chain link fence pulling out, what's to stop somebody from putting a wooden fence there?
Well, Debbie, it shouldn't go
And you
past,
have
I
no
mean,
vision.
even if it's a corner, it still shouldn't be, put out past the setback lines.
I don't think it should either.
Our front, side, and back setbacks. If you make them since it's a structure, if you make them build it within the setback limits, it's not going to be an issue. And
I think so too. I
Didn't this
agree.
issue, excuse me, didn't this same issue come up with a gentleman that was building a barbecue pit or something a few months back, and it was built on the within that setback thing and we had to make him move it?
He had to get a variance. I think, if I'm not mistaken,
We made him move it.
Give a variance.
We made him move it.
Whatever the vote of the board of the commission was, I thought that he got the variance. But if you didn't, yeah, he had to move it.
I thought we
So
made
I
him.
mean, it's the same way with a fence. A fence is a structure. It takes parts to assemble. It's got to be built. So whether it's wood, metal, glass, stainless steel cables, it's still a structure that has to be built, and it still, needs to fall within our setback limits.
So Mark, this is what it said in the zoning ordinance. The definition for a structure. It said that the front and side yard setback requirements set forth in the table, which was incorporated into the Jasper Municipal Code section, did not apply to fences on setbacks.
Yeah.
But then, like I said,
think
this old section right here that it refers to, I had looked it up the other day. I've forgotten what it said now. So
that might have been what they changed the municipal code to read after that big issue came back. Like I said, Zach was the attorney back then, but it was a big, huge controversy about putting fences, up out there so that, they obstructed view or whatever. But do you know when that was changed to reflect that fences were not part of that?
I don't think it said. Let's see.
Is it in change 4, which would have been?
No, it doesn't have an amended date on it.
Okay.
See, 14.209 and 14.20. Okay, so it's 14.209. Now, this is something I did want to bring to your attention while we're talking about it, because when Earl called me about it and I looked this up, in your municipal code, you have a copy of the zoning ordinance, but it's not up to date with all the changes that we have done. Typically, what we do in the community is we have a standalone set of subdivision regulations and a standalone set of zoning restrictions. And so those are usually just referenced in the municipal code as ordinance such and such. And that way it can be amended. So what you end up with is you have this section of the municipal code that appears to be a zoning ordinance, which is also different from the zoning ordinance we're currently using.
Yeah. Well, see, the problem with that is MTAS only updates the municipal code when they get enough ordinances in to justify, rewriting the book. So, I mean, you can't just go to the municipal code and that may not necessarily give you the answer. You still you look in the municipal code first, then you also have to check the ordinance to see if there's been an update or a change to the municipal code from the last time that change was enacted. And I think that one that you put up, was it 2002 or 2012, March?
Let's see. I'm not 100% sure it's the most current one. I just downloaded it a little while back.
Yeah, I mean, stop. Go back up a little bit. There you go. March 12th, 2012. That's the last time it was updated. So, we send all those ordinances up to MTAS, and when the stack gets big enough, then they revise the municipal code and update it with all these, ordinances and changes. But I mean, it's not something that they do every year. I mean, you see how long it takes. I mean, it's been 2012 since the last one was done. But now that you're saying that, if there's not an ordinance that addresses those fences, then, the planning commission probably needs to make a recommendation to the board of mayor and aldermen, about changing that. Because we don't need those out there on the road making hazard like Stan's talking about.
Well, and not only that, if for example, if you're going to allow someone to take that fence all the way to the curb, why would I want to take and put sidewalks into a subdivision and then have one of the customers or one of the homeowners take a fence and go all the way out to the curb, encompass the sidewalk and all inside his property? You know, we
Well,
wouldn't
now,
do that.
Stan, on those, are those sidewalks, or did you retain ownership of those, or did they go over to the city?
They go over to the
They don't
city.
have a right to put a fence on city property.
That's what we're talking about. They were putting fences on city property.
No, they don't.
Earl
no,
said there's nothing in the code saying that they couldn't do that.
They don't own the property. They don't have a right to put a fence on it.
That's the whole point I'm getting at is.
Okay, I misunderstood you. No, I mean, I'll talk to Earl about that. If it's on city property, they need to get it off. Because if they don't, they can actually set up an adverse possession claim. You know, it takes 30 years to do it, but they could actually, you know, claim that property and actually get ownership of it.
Well, see, like I said, you know, we're going to take care of this. It just cost me $350 to have a survey come out and mark his corners for him. And he's willing to move that fence back to his property line. So we got that taken care of, and that's what with me, I just thought it was just, I mean, we can make an ordinance on everything. You can only take 2 breaths per minute, or you can do, you know, you could have an ordinance that's, you know, that's 400 pages long. It's just,
I don't even think, Stan, I don't even think we need an ordinance. I mean, you know, that's city property. They don't have a right to put anything on city property.
well, that's what I was saying. Why don't I just go ahead and start putting fences on city property and taking it?
I mean,
It's
if they
designated.
do, if they try that, then we need to send someone out and, you know, they either move it or the city tears it.
If the property is already designated,
Against the city.
if the property is already designated and supposed to have a sidewalk there, which I don't know why the sidewalk isn't there, then obviously no one can build a fence on property that a sidewalk's going through. I mean, that's pretty
Did they
easy.
have they already built the fence there and taken
But
the
no,
sidewalk?
They just started it.
They had the post up and in concrete, but I talked to the guy that was putting it up, and I know the guy that was installing it, so he went ahead and pulled the posts up until we could get it. And Earl come out and told him just, you know, go ahead and stop work on it until we get it straightened out. So because the old homeowner really, when somebody buys a house, they don't really know, especially if it's in a subdivision. Now, if it's in a piece of property where that they have it surveyed and the survey markers out, but when you buy a piece of property in a subdivision, you're just buying lot 3, lot 25, lot 18.
Right.
So you don't really have a survey, so they don't know exactly where that. If some people actually think that you're buying to the center of the road. Some people think that they own to the center of the road. So I mean, it varies. But I guess the whole point of the matter is as long as Mark, you know, if the city attorney agrees with the way that I do, I don't think that they can encompass city property, just take city property and encompass it with a fence, no matter whether it's wood, metal, temperate, whatever.
Hey, I agree with you, Stan. That, I mean, I mean, they have no right to put anything on city property. That belongs to the town of Jasper. And if they're doing that, then we need to send Earl out and they either move it or the city goes out there and moves it.
Well,
this will be take our city property in with fences. That can't happen.
Right. So what we can do is we can just mention it to Earl that, you know, that we have made a recommendation to let him know that people cannot encompass city property with a fence or any kind of structure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll talk to Earl about that.
Good.
I guess one question that may come up, just like you're talking about with the homeowners, though, is how's Earl going to know where the line is? You know, if it's a city sidewalk, I mean, that's pretty easy to see. But if it's something that, you know, there's going to be one put in and it's not there yet, how's he going to know where the line is?
Well, he's going to just have to tell the homeowner, you'll have to show me where the property lines are at. And
yeah,
the
that's true.
homeowner
And he can make him get a survey. So
right.
Who's responsible for putting those sidewalks in? If there was a sidewalk there, it'd be clear.
The sidewalk's already there, Yvonne. It's a different story. There's no sidewalks on Elm. There never was any sidewalks on Elm. There never will be any sidewalks on Elm.
Okay.
But there is sidewalks on Tobias Court and on Wilson Court.
So that runs down the front of a home, right? Not the back.
That's correct.
So the front would be designated for a sidewalk. But when you own a property on the corner, like Debbie was talking about, then if there's not going to be a sidewalk around those, what designates it city?
The
If it
50-foot
isn't
right.
designated for a
Driveway
sidewalk,
setback.
if it
Yeah.
isn't
We're not talking,
designated,
just forget sidewalks altogether. We're just talking about property.
well, why is it city property then?
Because when a person develops a piece of property, when you look, just like, for example, you just approved a preliminary plat on a subdivision. If you'll look at that preliminary plat and study it, you'll see that that whole subdivision had a 50-foot roadway going through there. When it got down to the cul-de-sac, it went from a 50-foot to a 100-foot radius. So a bus or an ambulance can turn around. So once you put that 50-foot roadway through there, now the road's not going to be that wide. Road only has to be 22 or 20 feet wide, and it don't have to be in the center. That road can be maybe on the left side of that 50-foot, the right side. Power can go on the left side or the right side. But once that road is constructed and turned over to the city, then the city owns that property.
Okay, so that property was turned over to the city that goes all the way around the house, except the front is sidewalk. Okay. All right.
All right,
City
Chad,
owns
we ready to move?
And I'll talk to Earl. I'll call Earl tomorrow and, let him know that, do whatever you got to do, Earl, make them, bring a surveyor out there, but do not let them put anything on city property. So I'll talk to Earl about that.
All right.
Okay. All right, Chad, anything else?
Two last things. I talked to Jimmy Sneed recently, and he had called about a new home that just went in that last subdivision we approved of his, and the post office had said that they would not deliver mail to that home. And if you recall from our planning commissioner training we did last year, the United States Postal Service has implemented a new policy that in any new subdivision development that has at least 7 or more homes, they require a centralized cluster mailbox system for that home. Now, his was developed long before those rules came into effect, but that issue had come up with him. So I gave him the lady's name in Knoxville that handles all the new developments for the post office here in Tennessee. Here in Tennessee. So I don't know where that's going to go on that one, but that's not really something we can help along. And it may be some other issues that come up on properties where we've approved subdivisions in the past, but they haven't developed yet. So even the one we approved tonight, it's very likely in the near future, as homes start going in, they may require that mailbox system. Now, we've worked a while back with that lady out of Knoxville on maybe some proposals as to what we could do as far as identifying like a common use lot in a subdivision to put those, some adequate parking so that when you pull into the neighborhood, you can pull off the side of the road and actually get to those mailboxes. So that may be something we have to talk about again in the future. And then last thing, just wanted to say Merry Christmas to everybody and welcome Mayor-elect Jason Turner, who's on with us. Jason, do you have anything you wanted to say?
Oh, thank you, sir. But I did want to add something, what you were just saying about the mailboxes. I built my house here in 2012, and we've always had a post office box. And I went by to get specs to build a concrete type mailbox out in front of mine. And you're right, they won't allow that now.
Well, Jason, I believe I had talked to the lady up in Knoxville, and we did get that subdivision. It has been approved for those boxes. So if you put a box up there, they will deliver your mail to that address now.
Okay.
So, and I do have the letter from the lady, because I did have to go through the woman in Knoxville, and she come out and looked it over. And so I think you should be okay right there now. But yeah, that definitely is a problem. And it's like pulling teeth trying to get something done for sure. And that's something that Bobby needs to take a look at, or any new development, because anything over 7 lots is, she's going to hold her feet to the fire, on that.
Yeah, and that one Jimmy called about, that's the first I've heard in your area of them actually saying it. That's the first phone call I've gotten about it.
Well, I got all that information from that last meeting we had, and I'm glad that we had that meeting and I had all that information. So I didn't have to call anybody because you all kind of laid it out pretty good in that meeting. So I do appreciate, and that's what's, it's almost like some of the times you hear people saying taking algebra or math or something in school, you don't ever use it. Well, this sometimes, we may not use some of that stuff in your meetings, but there is times that we definitely do, and we appreciate those meetings, and it's very knowledgeable at times.
Yeah, thank you. Mac, that's all I have. So Merry Christmas to everybody.
All right, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
See you in January.
Anybody want to make a motion
We're
to
adjourned. We
adjourn?
just got a motion to
I
adjourn.
make a
making a-
motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay, there we are, motion in a second.
Second.
I say it carried.
Aye.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Merry Christmas. Let's see where my leave there down here.
Volume off.
I'm